Hello, hello. Welcome to a new edition of the NCCR podcast. I'm the man behind the scene controlling the cameras. And without further ado, let me introduce you to the hostess with the mostest. Give it up, ladies and gentlemen, for Kimmy Kim and Amanda. Sick.
I haven't been serenaded like that in probably my whole life.
I know.
Thank you, DeVandis.
I try.
It was lovely.
You do good work.
Lovely effort.
So, ladies, how was your weekend?
Fast, but good.
Are you tired, Amanda?
A little.
Just a little?
Just a little. Are you tired?
I think I'm back.
You think you're
I think
back?
I'm back.
All right.
Yeah, I think I'm back.
I'm always tired.
You're always tired.
I'm old. I'm elderly.
She's always down for a nap.
I'm always thinking a nap sounds good right about now.
Kim, you've been a busy bee.
Well, I've been busy watching some people work in my yard, which is fascinating. I mean,
Yeah.
that would have taken Steve and I days and a fair amount of all the muscles in our body being tight because we had some tree trimmer, cutter people at the house, and
Let them do the work.
they're amazing.
That's awesome.
Well done. If you need a good tree guy, I got one.
We give them a good golf clap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, ladies. Pastor Steve, come again with the baggage series. What are your thoughts?
It
What are
was
your
fully
takeaways?
loaded yesterday.
Yeah. Rejection.
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 Do
Yeah.
you have it all together?
And he talked about how to make grace-filled spaces.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, and you talk, how it impacts our choices and behaviors, right?
Yeah.
Because kind of like last week, I think it was, where you learn things early on,
Mm-hmm.
and those kind of stick with you until you realize there's a different way to do things.
Yeah.
I think rejection falls into that same wheelhouse. If you've felt rejected your whole life or part of your life or at any time in your life, that carries forward. And it can be triggered. I don't really like that word, but
Yeah.
I also don't like the word pivot, just FYI.
I'm not a fan either.
Y'all don't like pivot?
Maybe we should make a
I don't.
list.
Yeah, we'll make a list. The
Words not to mention.
words not to say in front of us. But yeah, that can carry over and spill over into your adult life. And then, of course that leads to shame. All of
Yeah.
these things lead to shame.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting, he talked about not being phony, for lack of a better word.
Mm-hmm.
And having those places that you feel safe, that you can be who you are, and in that you start to heal.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought to myself, it takes so much effort to be phony,
It does.
Right?
I agree.
and it's not like a thing that you can maintain long term.
Well, it's kind of like, phony or lying or just, it's hard. I agree. I think it takes a lot of energy to be something you're not,
Yeah.
or to perpetuate something that isn't accurate.
Yeah.
Because you have to remember what you said the last time,
Right.
or you have to, you just put on a
keeping it-
face,
yeah.
and that's work.
Yeah.
And I
Think
think that with the rejection thing, as it pertains to our relationship with Jesus, I mean, he chose the rejects, right?
Yeah.
Those were his people. I mean, he went after folks that were, I mean, tax collector, and he hung out with,
Yeah.
kind of what would be considered these days as ne'er-do-wells, I
Yeah.
mean, he just didn't have any qualms about that.
Kim, my nephew, we was talking after the service right before the yoga treat, and like you were saying, he sought out the less desirable.
Mm-hmm.
And he said this, and it kind of stumped Stephanie and myself. He's like, so what if Jesus was hanging out with P. Diddy?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Like, ooh, what would we say? How would we feel?
Right. Well, I mean, I think it's the same concept, right? Because the tax collector certainly was looked at as a pretty heinous personality back then, and prostitutes, and yeah, it's the worst of the worst, and in that we have to see ourselves in some of those people, because
We're all broken.
There are times when we're not doing a lot better. And then again, it gets into that conversation about quantifying sin and sinners, because we all fall short, which is why we need Christ. And you can't point a finger. I mean, yeah, maybe on paper that looks a little bit worse than something I might have done or have done. But it's just as bad. What we do is just as bad.
Yeah.
In God's eyes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Church is for sinners.
Exactly.
Along the lines with the Pharisees, there's a verse in Matthew 23. It says, "First wash the inside of the cup and the dish, and then the outside will become clean too." And I think Steve talked about that yesterday. Like, people show up phony, right? On the outside, they look all put together, or they can recite a whole book of the Bible or whatever, but inside, it's not quite
and
the
it's
same.
that fear-based movement in your life, right?
Yeah.
It's the I want people to see me the way I want them to see me, and so I am phony, or I'm not being my true self, being dishonest, because of fear of rejection. Because if you don't look a particular way, dress a particular way, maybe you can't recite the whole Bible, and that makes you feel a particular way.
Yeah.
But it's just that fear-based reaction.
I think too, along the lines of the phony, I think when you don't show up as your authentic self, whatever that looks like, you're giving a lot of other people power over you, right?
Yeah. Right.
And it's not maintainable long term. So then at some point they're going to be taking like all your joy and your peace, and this has moved far from God at this point, right?
Yeah. Well, it allows them to tell you who they think you are, and if you,
and what's acceptable or not.
Right. Well, in James 5:16, confess your sins so that you can be healed. If you're not forthcoming with God, because that's where you need to start, right? Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. I mean, Lutheran liturgy. But it's so true that if we're not vulnerable to God, who already knows everything we've done, but if we don't confess that and then confess that to one another, the healing can't start. If you act like nothing's wrong, it's never going to get better.
Yeah.
And that is a you thing. I mean, that, and I know people, and I've been guilty of it myself. You're trying to help somebody get through a thing, and they don't really want it. They may say they do, or they're not really ready for it, or they're not being truthful that they want that thing, and it's just, they have to do that. There is some of the stuff you have to do for yourself.
Yeah.
But to come along people during that process that can support you,
yeah,
without trying to fix you, that's That's better.
I had this thought the other day, well, yesterday afternoon, that, you know, we're called to be a part of the Great Commission, right? And if you are phony or not yourself, not who God's called you to be or has created you to be, how do you invite unbelievers into your gatherings?
Yeah.
They're probably looking at you thinking like, you know, I don't know, there's a lot of leaves without any fruit.
Well, if you've
I don't know,
been walking through this kind of phony existence and you
Yeah.
present yourself in a particular way, and then the rubber meets the road, so to speak, and you can't back that stuff up,
Yeah.
then again, that's the whole segue into church hurt and following the wrong leadership, and when
Yeah.
you're tasked with leadership or you're actively discipling somebody, you need to have come clean first
Yeah.
before you can do that.
I saw this video, and this person said, if someone followed you around for 24 hours, would they find Jesus? Not church, but Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And that struck me huge, because I want to know him and not just his name.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to live so that if somebody did follow me for 24 hours, they would end up at the cross and not anywhere else.
Scratching their head in the parking lot. Yeah.
You know, Amanda, piggyback off that. Also, if someone asks you, hey, send me a picture of your church, what would you send?
Well, I think most people would send a picture of the building.
Yeah.
Right.
But
But we are the church.
I know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that made me think even more when I was taking pictures of North Lakers coming into the building. I was taking pictures of the church.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I
You
love
know.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, Steve said too that, you know, I think he said this before, that shame cannot survive being spoken, right? So if you take the risk, you're vulnerable, and you confess to God, shame can't live there. You're starting to put that fire out. And again, we've all heard I'm sure coming up one time, at least one time in our life, shame on you.
Yeah.
But we were talking the other day, and nobody ever has said to me, guilt on you.
Guilt on you.
Yeah.
That's just not a thing. And when you start to think about how shame can dwell and linger and hang out, because people hear that all the time.
Yeah.
That's shameful. Shame on you. You should be ashamed of yourself. I mean, that is
You know, Kim,
Go ahead.
it made me think when you was talking about that, the movie 8 Mile, and Eminem character, you know, he knew that in this rap battle scene that they were going to try to bring up his past. So what he did, he started talking about his past.
He did it himself, yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
It took the power away from the opponent, and, you know, it gave him the power.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and he talked about too, about, you know, living in grace, and, you know, grace offers acceptance and love despite our imperfections, and shame leads us to being, you know, full of self-doubt and hiding and making ourselves look like something that we're not, for fear of judgment from other people. And you know, God tells us to just live in his light, be his child. That's where we need to get our self-worth. If you're starting down that path, you need to only look there, because other people are always going to fail you. Humans just do that. That's just what they do. And then I saw some key differences between grace and shame that I was going to share really quick. And grace focuses on inherent worth. Shame focuses on perceived flaws. Grace fosters connection. Shame fosters isolation. Grace leads to healing and growth, and shame can lead to destructive patterns. And then lastly, grace is a gift and shame is a burden. You know, you're not supposed to be perfect. You're not supposed to be because nobody is, you
Yeah.
know, and you're not supposed to be passive in this hunt for God's acceptance and love. He's very clear on how to achieve it and how much he wants us to be in communion with him, and we need to actively pursue him.
Yeah. I have two things that go along with that. I think we often forget that we already have God's approval. Like, our very existence and his infinite love and wisdom has deemed us worthy of existence, and we look to others as a substitute for what we can only get from God, right? And then I read Matthew 3:17, and it says, "This is my son who I'm well pleased." And it had me thinking that Jesus didn't heal or turn water into wine and then hear this statement. He heard it before he did any of those things. And everything Jesus did, he did it knowing that he was affirmed and loved. And he didn't do it to be affirmed and loved. And I think that's just like so powerful to me. And it just makes me really like, that's what God wants for us to know, like in our heart, and have the heart posture that we are affirmed and loved by the Father. Like, stop looking for external validation.
Yep.
Because like you said, like, people will always disappoint you. People will always hurt you. Everybody is broken and sinful and doing the best that they can. And we have to trust our Father in heaven and not those around us.
You know, I like how Pastor Steve also did the God is light. And Kim, you were saying earlier about how sin and shame keep us in the darkness. But if we turn it over to God, it helps exposes everything because we're coming into that light, you know, and that's where shame disappears. Like, commercial, the towel bubble just shrinks down and go away.
I love it.
Well, I mean, when you think about it, it's kind of a no-brainer, right? I mean, it's not kind of a no-brainer. It is a no-brainer, because do you want to live in a place where forgiveness and dignity and kindness and empathy and acceptance and gratitude dwell? Or do you want to live in a place where you're expected to be a particular way, or you feel icky about getting up every day and you can't talk to people and be your real self? And I mean, there's just so much benefit to believing what God tells you. He loves you, you're his child, and he's never going to forsake you. Instead of just wondering, well, what about today? Because I just did something that you might not be happy with. Well, that's not the point. Every day we're going to do something that he's not happy with.
Yeah.
Even given our very best effort, it takes a nanosecond of a commercial on TV or something on your Facebook feed that puts you in another place, headspace. But the point is, we don't have to feel ashamed if we give it up to God. That can all go away. And again, it's not going to happen all at once. I mean, it might, but typically it's a process. But if you never get started, you'll never reach the end of it. So,
and if you have the guts to be real and vulnerable, which is hard, you are making room for the Holy Spirit to work. Which I don't know about you, but I'd rather have that than impressing some people you might not remember a year from now.
Well, it's kind of like a cluttered closet, you know, and I use this analogy because this morning while I was waiting for the tree guys, I decided to declutter my closet.
Good work.
A little bit, and label a few things and move some things out and put them in a box to do something else with. And I kind of thought, that's just such a nice feeling to just get rid of some of the stuff that's not serving you.
Yeah.
And there's so much in our day-to-day stuff that doesn't serve us.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
yeah.
Chew on that, folks.
Chew on that.
All right, Kim. What question would you like to leave the audience?
Well, guess, and it's a little redundant, I suppose, but maybe I'll ask two. I'll leave two. Do you or have you modified behavior for fear of rejection? And then what messages about worth and value have you internalized?
These are good.
So,
I think people will need a whole week to ponder that.
yeah.
All righty. Do ponder.
Do ponder.
And chew on it. But seriously, we need to get rid of that shame and walk in that light. But hey, guys, thank you for tuning in. Hit that like button, subscribe, share, and we will continue breaking it down from our point of view. Until next week. Hey, ladies, you know how we do it, right?
We
About
do.
this
We
time.
know how you do it. Yeah.
We are